Hello, everybody. Hi. How you doing? This is
Hi.
another edition of the Pompously Political Podcast. Yes, that is right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a little bit excited, Scott. I'm a little bit excited to do this sort of podcast today. We have lots of stuff in the news, of course, and as always, I am one of the dynamic duo known as the Pompously Political co-host team. I am Jimmy, and I'm joined by co-host.
Scott.
Ooh, bam!
You take
Drum
all the
roll.
thunder out of it for me. All that's left by the time you get to me is just my name.
I kind of go on a roll. I just kind of, just say what's on my tongue. I say what's on my mind, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you know that I'm being genuine. It's because when I talk a lot and the shit that comes out of my mouth, I'm not scripting this shit. It's just blah. It's there. It's
The
kind of
screw
like
ups come out too. That's how you know.
yeah. Oh yeah. If I'm scripted, you'll know. It'd be like, Jimmy's really quiet and he says actual thoughtful things. That's um. So yeah, like I said, we have a lot of news going on. A lot of disturbing news. To be honest, like
Where to even begin?
yeah. You know what? Since it's on everybody's mind, let's talk about that Jared Fogle guy for a minute.
The
Um,
elephant in the room. Yep.
yeah. Or the former elephant turned, uh, well,
Turned weasel. Turned.
yeah, yeah. I was trying to think of a good animal to show the difference of this guy. Well, obviously, everybody knows Jared Fogle is the guy who was with Subway. He gained his fame because he went on essentially a Subway diet and lost a shit ton of weight, and became an inspiration to a lot of people. I think we've mentioned this before on the podcast, but now it's official. Of course, with the charge of 14 counts of assault on a child or a minor, and also child pornography, which is disturbing. I guess that FBI raid on his home pulled up quite a substantial amount of collection, which is that's sick and terrifying, really, to think about it. Uh, Not even the guy who's a spokesperson for good old wholesome Subway is a legitimate person.
Well, this has been kind of an ongoing thing. This FBI actually had somebody speaking to him undercover. That she was kind of playing the part, getting him to say whatever he wanted to say. Not so much entrapment, because she wasn't, I guess, promoting anything to him. She was just there to listen to what he had to say. And they said over the years, because it's been several years that they've been having these conversations, um, he got more and more comfortable talking about him having sex with minors to this undercover person, to the point that even the persons who was recording him, her children were brought into question. Um, he brought them up, basically, expressing some type of interest in them. It's really disturbing, the links, how comfortable he was with it, as if his celebrity status protected him and he could do no wrong.
Yeah, that's disturbing. Imagine if you're that person. You're hired to essentially get the information on this guy's despicable acts, and then your children get brought into it. That's that's disturbing. Um,
Especially 'cause it looks like in the instance of this undercover, I guess, how he was going about this was that he was getting to know people like this, and then he would pay them for sex with the children and to take pictures and videos and things of them.
that adds a whole other element to it that is disturbing. What what is it about these cases that have been coming out lately? This case, the Bill Cosby stuff. What is it with these people that again is it the entitlement, the affluence of having large quantities of money and really no accountability? I mean, if you're Bill Cosby and you get pulled over, chances are you're probably not. Well, now that they know you're a sleazy asshole, but I mean, back in the day, be like, hey man, you saw Ghost Dad? All right, get the fuck away and let me get on my life. You know what I mean? So
I
is that
think
what
it
it is,
just it
Scott?
goes to show the extent to which this is a problem in the country. Um, obviously this is illegal, so it's nothing somebody's going to talk about. I've mentioned a couple times on the show that as a child I was molested, but growing up with that in my background, it changes you. It gives you a different outlook on life. Um, so obviously my thoughts are with the victims in this. They have a long road ahead of them. Um, but one of the things that's happened with me, I guess, as I've gotten older, is that people, especially women, um, kind of confide in me. They trust me for some reason, and they tell me these stories, even when I barely know them. They will tell me these things that have happened to them. Sometimes that they haven't told anybody else, um, and the amount of times that has happened is mind blowing. It's happened at every job I've ever worked. It's probably one out of every 10 women I've really, had conversations with, sat down and talked to for a little bit, even if that was the extent that we ever knew each other. Probably one, I would say at least 1 out of 10 has admitted something like that to me, and there's probably more that didn't admit it to me. It's such a common thing that nobody's really talking about. It's not a popular topic to put in the news. It's not something that you want to discuss. Um, it's disgusting. It's terrible. I think everybody understands that and admits that. It's going on more than anybody wants to admit.
Well, yeah, I mean that's if people were confiding you that often about it, I mean that says something right there. It's obviously it's more than just isolated pockets of incident. And then not only that, but you brought the interesting point. Majority of the cases that you do hear about involve women, involve females. Uh, what about the statistics for men in that situation? How little are we talking about that as a society? Because it does happen. Men are raped and sexually assaulted. I would. I don't have any statistical data to back it up. I would be interested to
But
find
it's
somebody.
not front page. Even
Right.
today, I read an article on Huffington Post about, or maybe it wasn't Huffington Post. It might have been something on Facebook about how here in Florida, a mother and father sent their 2 boys, to the bathroom at McDonald's, and then one boy came back, and so the father goes, all right, well, I'm gonna go check on the other one, and he walked the other, and when he walked in, the guy was walking out, and he walked in the stall, and there was his son pulling up his pants, like crying. But that's not front page news. That was like hidden in the news feed down. It's not something people want to talk about. So it's not going to get the hits. It's not going to get the sensationalism. There we go. Sensationalism that promotes the rest of these stories. I mean, it's a serious problem. It happens far more than school shootings happen. But we're going to talk school shootings to death. We're not going to talk about even the thing with Jared. It's not a top story on the on these
Right.
news
And that
agencies.
is disturbing. That is disturbing. And I think we kind of need to address those issues because uh, quite frankly, I think it's a large, very important issue, and just by the sheer numbers of it, what are we not hearing about it? You know what I
Right.
mean? The cases that go unreported, and you could do the how many people have now come forward against Bill Cosby. Uh, this Jared from Subway, which Subway is pushing him so far away at this point. They're like, no, Jared, and they're just like trying to push. It's kind of like that scene from Star Wars when Obi-Wan is fighting Luke Skywalker or not Luke Anakin Skywalker, and then Anakin falls into the pit of lava, and he's like, "You were the chosen one." That's the way Subway felt about Jared because he was so just uh, he was the spokesperson. On top of that, I guess the
We
charity, I guess the charity that Jared, working? Like the Child Obesity Foundation was a sham. None of the stuff was paid out. I saw that in the news as well. Um, so I don't really know much about that. But back on the topic of sexual assault and especially on children in this country, it's a big deal, and I think that we'll find that as our ability to disseminate information as quickly as we are now with the technological, with the internet and so forth, that we're going to see a lot more of these people, celebrities, in fact, that have committed these horrible things. I don't think it's going to end with Bill Cosby, and it's certainly not going to end with Jared Fogle. So.
And it's disgusting. I mean, Subway might even have to get rid of the footlong because that's already been a joking point with him that, oh, he's going to get his footlong now.
Right. It's bad enough that your sandwich looks like a phallic object anyways. On that question, here's a question for you. Do you think that we have this epidemic of sexual assault and so forth because of how overly sexualized we are as a society, as a culture?
You'd have to put that in perspective with the human race and what has been acceptable. 18 as a statute of limitations, that's new. That's, 40, 50 years old. Up until that point, up into the thousands and thousands of years, there really was no set limit like that. When girls were getting married off at 13 and 14 and having babies. I mean, so it's not that it's overly sexualized. It's just, it's kind of part of our DNA. Our DNA is coded to reproduce. That's how we survive.
Right.
And everybody has their own particular taste. Some people are willing to go outside of what is current law to fulfill what didn't used to fall under the law. I guess to say it in a way that kind of turns my skin to say it. It's only disgusting recently. Before that, it was perfectly fine.
Well, I mean, like, take for instance, one of the things, because I was going for education, and having to go into schools, go into classrooms, and of course interact in the classroom environment with, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and just seeing the way that. Just seeing the outfit choices. I know I sound really conservative with this. I sound like an old man, but the outfit choices that some of these kids are wearing compared to some of the stuff that when I was in that grade, what kids were wearing is completely different. Kids are wearing outfits that I personally don't think that a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old should be wearing. Personally. I mean, it shouldn't be a matter of, she's wearing that outfit, therefore, you know what I mean? Like, she's susceptible to that sort of attention. Or, I mean, you don't really see guys running around in halter tops or anything like that, but you see what I mean? Like, is it possible that our culture has...
well, we invented the term jailbait. I mean...
Right. Oh, yeah. And just a lot of crazy stuff about that, but I mean, I'm one of those people that I've watched porn in my day. I've seen a lot of porn and stuff like that. So I'm not prudish or anything like that in reference to that, but I do feel that a certain level of our society, a certain part of our society has become. It's in our media. We've got this over sexualization and almost objectification of. I mean, we had a countdown. Till the Olsen twins turn 18. Like, that's...
I remember that.
Pretty, yeah.
I had that website favorited.
But, I mean, it's that ingrained in our culture, Scott. You know what I mean?
Well, look at Kylie Jenner turning 18 here just a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was a huge... She released a picture of her side boob, and the internet went nuts. I mean,
right.
Something as small, as trivial as that. But I think we're delving into a conversation that's That's its own topic on its own as far as radicalization.
I went a little deep on you, Scott.
A little bit. I'm gonna pull us up to some lighter water. But what really pisses me off about this whole Jared thing is that with his plea deal, he's only going to serve between 5 and 13 years. So he's going to
between 5 and 13. 13 years. I mean, does he have the opportunity for parole within that, or is it he's going to serve 13 years?
I didn't see anything on that, but it's no less than 5, no more than 13. Now, that's the recommendations to the judge. The judge can still slap him with the max penalty, regardless of plea deal or whatever. And I really hope that he does. Yeah, I really hope that he does, because this bastard needs to go away.
Right. I'm in agreement that he definitely needs to pay the price on that. The other aspect of that is that this obviously the label that he's going to have for the rest of his life as well. If he does get it, if he only gets 13 years and gets out in 13 years, he's still gonna have that label of being a pedophile.
He's gonna have to change his name. There is no place somebody like that can go now and not instantly have their life in danger. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think he might deserve a few, an ass whooping every night. But I don't know. Even at that, 13 years in prison is not enough time to pay your dues for that shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible thing. So I guess we should move on before I start getting extraordinarily deep into that again. But let's kind of get on a little bit of the optimistic train here, Scott. I mean, we kind of hit off on a somber note with Jared, a fall of our subway hero. But I believe it was 3 servicemen, Scott, that stopped this gunman?
It was. They were originally said to be Marines, but turns out it's an airman, it's a sailor, and it was like National Guard or something.
Yeah. But for those people that haven't been following this, what pretty much happened was that this man was on they were all on a train in France, and this man pulled out came to the part of the train they were in, and he was wielding a Kalashnikov. I don't know how to say it. And so these servicemen, and I believe there was a British guy and a French guy. They all bum rushed this guy. One guy was cut on the hand. Somebody was shot in the shoulder. But they subdued the guy and stopped a horrible tragedy from taking place. So kudos to you guys. That's amazing. I mean, we could say a million times how grateful we are, and I'm sure it would not be enough, because a lot of people were alive on that train because you guys decided to step in and do something.
Right.
They also got awarded the highest award in France. I can't remember the name of the award.
The Légion d'honneur.
Yeah.
Légion d'honneur. I don't speak French, whatever.
Which I hope wasn't normal French greetings, which was 2 kiss on the cheek and a baguette. So hopefully they got something a little more than that. But yeah, man, what are your thoughts on that, Scott?
Well, I mean, you summed it up. I mean, it's another terrorist attack, and I'm happy that it wasn't just Americans doing it. It wasn't just American bravado and chauvinism coming in to save the day. You're not going to shoot this train. Ha! It was
America.
Yeah, it was actually a Frenchman that was the first to attack him, and then the 3 Americans and the Brit did it. So it's really not much else to say on that other than kudos. I'm glad they're all okay. The one guy was in critical condition there for a while, but pretty much all of us can say the same at this point on this, conservatives and liberals, that we're glad that this was stopped, that this didn't result in any loss of life, just a couple of injuries. But there's another side that's already coming out, and I'm only highlighting it because I think we've talked about the libtards before, and this is where the libtards are going to start getting louder when it comes to this incident, because now he's a Moroccan man in the Muslim garb and get up, so we've called him a terrorist. Now he's saying he wasn't committing a terror attack. He only wanted to rob people. So now we're going to get this wave of sympathy from the other side that has to somehow dignify the scumbag and say that, you know, we're so quick with our Islamophobia to label everything terrorist that, you know, this guy was just trying to rob. He wasn't going to do a terrorist attack. Just pure stupidity that is going to come out of this. I'm calling it right now. It hasn't started yet, but based on what I'm reading out of this one article from the Telegraph, I'm calling it right now. That's what's going to happen.
That's kind of why I wanted to phrase it the way I did, because the fact of the matter is, there's no telling what his initial motives were. There's no telling what they were, because he wasn't able to fulfill those motives, whether it was to rob the train, whether it was to commit a terrorist act. You know, obviously, I'm of the belief that, you know, obviously the race doesn't matter. We've had Americans that have committed acts of terrorism for Al Qaeda, for ISIS, numbers of groups, people that you wouldn't even look at and say, oh, that person looks like a terrorist. So because of that, I see that. However, I hate when people take a story like this that is like, so something bad was stopped. That's the bottom line. The simplistic aspect of the story is somebody was going to do something terrible and he was stopped. But now you have to get into the nuances of the discussion. Was it a terrorist act? Is this guy a terrorist? Is he just a gunman? No, he's a criminal, and he should be treated like a criminal. It makes you wonder, like, at what point does something that could be completely normal, at what point does that then become an act of terrorism? All crime is terrorism. You know what I mean? Whether if it's ideologically motivated or not, you're committing an act of terror because all the people around you are fucking terrified. It's just that we've co-opted this word terrorism to mean just Islamic terrorism. And so yeah, you have these liberal-minded people. Of course, I'm very liberal in my thought, and you identifies yourself as quite liberal as well. You do have this element within the liberal-minded individuals that thinks that everything should be pigeonholed and everything should be subject to, I guess, is it that political correctness creeping up again, Scott?
It is, and it comes down to these categories that we have to place everything in. We want statistics, we want numbers, and you get statistics and numbers by putting more and more and more categories on it until you can. I think I made the joke about this before during like the Olympics or some special games that we were talking about, where it's the first African-born Malaysian woman to heavy throw a 35-pound dumbbell more than 100 feet. Yay, world first! Nobody fucking cares. We've put so many labels on this stuff that it doesn't mean anything. And now, when we get into a serious incident, where we're putting all of these labels and these categories and everything, it's like we put the categories on there to dilute it. So, well, let's look at Morocco. Morocco is not typically viewed as a terrorist country, although it is very highly Islamic. Now let me back up. So now we're going to look at Morocco and go, well, this was the first international terrorist attack based with somebody who was from Morocco. So that somehow diminishes it, and we shouldn't treat this guy so bad. Well, rather than just looking at it as, like you had said, it's just a criminal act that should be punished accordingly.
Right. I mean, you know what? If the guy was spouting, you know, Islamic ideology, stuff like that, and you know, if he has a propaganda website out there, if he's known affiliate of ISIS or something like that, then yeah, I could see how that. But the thing is, we'll never know if it was initially going to be a racially motivated. You could be a member of ISIS and you're like, fuck it, today I'm just going to be a normal criminal. You know, like, you're not bound by that particular ideology that the only crimes you're going to commit in your lifetime are going to be based in jihad. You know what I mean? Like, it's terrible. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, just chill out. He's a criminal. He didn't get to do anything, so that's good. It's a good story.
It is. Moving on to another good story, Donald Trump. He's always good for a story. Except for that one week, he let us down.
You know, man. Okay, so I don't know too much about this, so I'm just going to set it up and kind of let you talk, and then I'll provide some commentary. But essentially, that Megyn Kelly, if you remember the GOP debate, the first debate, Megyn Kelly and Donald Trump had some words. Of course, Donald Trump then commented about her lady bits, bleeding, which some people have taken offense to. And it's sort of spawned into something else now, Scott. It's
not that it's spawned into something else. It's reignited. So after the debate, there were some comments fired back and forth, and that at the end of it, basically, Megyn Kelly said, "All right, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna walk away from my show for a little bit. This is getting a little out of hand." And you know, we talked about in our State of the Union recap that she was a little out of line in those questions. So she deserved a little bit of pushback from Trump. Maybe not everything that he said, but she wanted to go to that level. Then, you know, that's the response. If you're throwing dirt at somebody, expect it to be thrown back. You can't throw dirt at somebody and then throw a fit when you get dirty because they threw it back. It doesn't work like that. So she took a break. She walked away to kind of clear her head, and it died. Nobody said anything else about it. Well, then she came back to her show, and of course, there's Trump to reignite it, and this is where he's starting to lose, and this is where his tide is going to turn, because we've talked about him burning brightly and being this superstar, and it's going to fade. This is where it's going to be, because he's pushed that button with the PC crowd. We don't want to be PC anymore. We're tired of everything having to be PC, and now he's pushing it too far. Because his comments about Megyn Kelly when she came back was, the bimbo's back in town. Now, those same people that were looking at Trump going, you know, you're right, we are so tired of moderating ourselves and having to adjust what we're saying, are like, maybe a little bit's okay. Maybe you shouldn't just go out and blatantly attack somebody like that. That's a little uncalled for. And he's thrown in some more tweets out there about, or more tweets and comments about how the show was better without her. Maybe she should take another unscheduled vacation, you know, and just let her replacement take over because she's better than Megyn is. So Trump clearly doesn't like her, but this is exactly why he can't be president. As much as he is tapped into American anger, he's going to lose it doing shit like this.
Right. I mean, the thing about it is, when you have that little of a filter, that you cannot even have a civil discussion, okay? This is the bottom line. I am all for say whatever you want to say, but obviously in certain situations, i.e. your job, right? Like if you're at your job, you can't say anything you want, okay? Well, I guess you could, but there's consequences. The thing about what people don't understand is when you stand for or stand against political correctness, it doesn't mean that you don't stand against the consequences that come when you say something stupid or when you say something inappropriate. And that's where Donald Trump is now, is he's at this point where, because he is rich and entitled and doesn't have to filter what he says, that he's just going to say whatever the hell he wants and expect that everybody's just going to jump on board. Well, the thing about it is, yeah, you're right. If you say something, you're going to get some backlash. And so when you start, you know, obviously everybody was over it. Megyn Kelly went on a you know, sabbatical, or sabbatical, is that the word I'm looking for? Hiatus. She went on a hiatus, disappeared for a little while because she kind of needed to recharge her batteries and just let things go. Okay. He's the one that reignited this.
He is, and what I'm saying is, along the lines of what you said, when he came out, he tapped into topics that people were tired of biting their tongue about. the Mexican immigration, or losing jobs to Mexico and China, losing economically to China and Japan. Even if he used some not politically correct terms to make those points, he was still making points that the American people, Republicans at least, as a whole, could get behind. But to go and call somebody a bimbo just because you don't like him? What national issue are you tapping into there? Why do you need to abandon political correctness when you're addressing another human being? If you want to address the issues with that, we're all for it. We're tired of biting our tongue. But when you're doing personal attacks like that, you can't do that. Not even Trump can get away with that.
Just imagine if Megyn Kelly was like a head of a foreign country or an ambassador.
And that's actually what I thought as soon as I read it the first time. What if that was Angela Merkel?
Right.
What if it was somebody like that? Like, Germans ain't gonna back down. We could go to war over shit like that.
No. Germans own half the world with their money right now. And we would most likely lose.
And we beat them twice. Unless third time's a charm.
No, I'm just saying because economically, in a lot of ways, Germans are a lot healthier right now. They've got a healthcare system. They're more educated because they got their healthcare or their education system working out with the free education and so forth. So they're beating us on a lot of fronts. So I don't know if we could win that battle a third time.
But you have to think about what America was in the last World War. I mean, could you imagine today if Trump gets elected president and he goes and says something to piss off the Germans, and the Germans are like, you know what? We're going to go to war over this. And then Trump says, okay, well, we're going to do this World War II style. Johnny Shoemaker in Okeechobee, Florida, I know you've spent your whole life making shoes. Now you're making military boots. I don't care. That's what you're going to do. Because that is literally what happened to the entire country. All of these industries were transformed. Ford's factory stopped making cars and started making tanks and planes and stuff. Could you imagine the backlash today from America as a whole? Why does my company have to do that?
Oh yeah.
If we could get over ourselves long enough to do something like what we did in World War II, which is still an amazing feat, the fact that we accomplished that, what we accomplished in that time frame. If we could do that, we could beat the Germans. If we can't, if we're going to stay divided like we are now, yeah, it'll probably be third time's a charm for Germany.
Imagine how long that United We Stand front stayed.
Where everybody after 9/11, it was like 4 months.
Yeah, it was. Everyone was like, "Don't forget 9/11. Support your troops. Don't forget 9/11." But then when they started,
9 what?
Yeah, 911. Who's hurt? Who's hurt?
4 months and 2 Toby Keith songs later.
I know, right? Toby Keith just kind of fell off the bandwagon. I think he just morphed into Ted Nugent. That's what happened. He just took the cowboy hat and everybody realized they're like, "Oh my God, it's the same person." But yeah, there's no way that we could be as cohesive as we were in either of the world wars. World War I, we were all about it in World War I because it was like, yeah, war is how you prove yourself a man. And then they actually went to war and was like, oh shit, this is terrible. Let's not do this ever again. And then of course, because follow your history, ladies and gentlemen, we got World War II out of the end of World War I because everybody was all pissed off. So yeah, I don't think we could pull it off. But so yeah, please, I'm begging you, American people. I know that all 5 of you that are watching this right now, probably. I don't know. Please make sure you don't vote for Trump. Please don't support him. I cannot stress to you enough that the damage that would happen to this country if we had a President Trump. Okay, number one, you know he's throwing his name on the fucking White House somewhere in big gold letters. It's gonna be on there. It's gonna become the Trump House, and we can't have that. That's meanwhile at the Trump House. What's his current wife now? He's not married to Ivana, right?
I had Putin over, and he said something I didn't like, so I slapped that motherfucker up the side of his head.
I called his wife a bimbo. What are you gonna do?
And now we're in a nuclear holocaust. I'm not sorry.
You'll save a fortune on your house bill because you won't have to heat it because it's like 140 degrees outside. Huh? Bada boom. Energy
Everywhere.
crisis solved. All right. I looked at Angela Merkel in the face. Now you know what I told that bimbo? I said, "You're fired." Okay.
All right. So yeah, don't vote for Trump. Vote for Sanders. Yeah. Get on that train.
Not the chicken guy. Not the chicken
But
guy.
there was another interesting video this week that came out that we're going to go over right now. Now, I'm not a fan of this video because I don't think it shows the full thing, but we're going to look at it real quick. And let me turn this out so you can actually hear
Movie
it.
time.
Yes.
Right now, it is actually, we're seeing Bible-believing Christians being persecuted. So, for example, one of the couples... No, for living according to their faith. So, for example... All right, I'm happy to answer your question, but not to have a back and forth debate.
Oh yeah, that wasn't the whole thing, but...
Stop. Okay, there we go. Now we're back.
So, yeah.
You want to go ahead? Go ahead. Please do.
go
I took the last one. All right. So she was asking about employers that are discriminating against LGBT, the LGBT community. Obviously, Ellen Page Mail from Juno. But his response, it's not something I can completely disagree with at the surface, but looking a little bit lower, I'm violently opposed to, was that we can't discriminate against people exercising their religious beliefs. Which, on the surface, that's what America was founded on. Freedom of religion, freedom to exercise your beliefs. But once you dig a little bit past that, a little bit further than what I think any true Republican like Ted Cruz is wanting or willing to go, you start seeing that when you open the door for discrimination, I don't care, your religious practice, your motivations behind the discrimination are irrelevant. It doesn't matter if God told you that you're entitled to 5 slaves, you better go out there and grab them out that field, boy. It doesn't matter. It's wrong. It's discrimination. You don't get to discriminate in this country. This country was founded on freedom. Not just freedom of religion, freedom in general.
Well, on that note, how many religions do you think have conflicting ideologies? You see, if you are free to express your religious beliefs in the way that Ted Cruz is advocating here, right? You're ultimately going to discriminate against somebody else. Whether it is somebody of the LGBTQ community, whether it is somebody of another faith. The thing about it is that is not the way this country was built or designed to function as when it comes to institutionalized discrimination. Now, what I tell people when it comes to the whole debate about this baker shouldn't have to bake a cake for a gay couple or whatever, or a gay wedding, okay? I got that, okay? If you're so deeply religious that you don't want to bake a cake for somebody that you don't agree with, I got that. But ultimately, you're a business that's serving the public, and the public is full of people that do not agree with your religious beliefs. Unless you're in like the hole in the wall, middle of nowhere, bumfuck Egypt. Sorry, Egypt. I don't mean to throw you into this, but if you're in the middle, I don't know why. Apparently, Egypt's that way. But the thing about it is that you're going to encounter people that are of a different ideology and a different belief and a different mode of thinking than you. So how could you then start discriminating against people based on your religious beliefs as a business that's serving the public? That's ridiculous.
Cruz's specific quote was that, quote, "At the end of the day, what we should not be doing is persecuting people who follow their faith," end quote. But to kind of further your point, some comments you made earlier, the Supreme Court has already determined that in numerous cases that although you have freedoms, those freedoms are not without limit. And I guess the easiest way to understand that limit is to look at your freedoms in comparison to somebody else's freedoms. Once your freedoms start infringing on another person's freedom, you don't have that freedom anymore. That's the boundary. So the way that he's putting it, he's trying to put this very politically correct spin. You're persecuting people for following their faith. No, we're not. What is being said is that you are not free to discriminate because you have religious beliefs. You're not being persecuted. You're being told you can't do that. Stop doing that.
Right.
And one of the points that Paige was making was that that's the exact same argument that Cruz is putting up is the exact same argument that was used to support slavery and to support segregation. And like we were talking about last week, these are all very similar topics. But we just keep coming back to this. We want the right to discriminate against somebody. We want the right to be prejudiced. You can't have that right. That's not how it works.
You can do that in the privacy of your own home. You can do that if you're running an Etsy store. Go ahead. I don't care, because it's the internet and people are going to buy whatever the hell they want to buy. But if you're a brick and mortar store in your local community and you refuse to serve somebody in your local community because and he says he mentioned about a grocery store in the full video. It wasn't shown in there, obviously, but he mentioned about a grocery store. He's like, well, if that grocer doesn't want to serve that person within the community, that person could go to another grocery store. What if you are the only grocery store within like 40, 50 miles?
And can be the case for a lot of rural America.
Right. So he's saying, well, then they could just go somewhere else. No, that's not the case, man. That's not the case. And that's the ticket right there. You're providing, you're facilitating the local community. Okay? If your community, if you're as homogenous as North Korea, more power to you. But I guarantee you that in most places, even in bumfuck Egypt, which is behind me, there are people of different nationalities, different everything, different belief structures. So, yeah, summed it up beautifully. We should put that on a bumper sticker. You have religious freedom. You don't have discriminatory freedom. You know what I mean? You don't have the freedom to discriminate. We'll have to work on that bumper sticker. We'll go to the drawing board and pick that one up.
Check back to the Polypopus website in the swag section for more information.
Which has been highly neglected. We got to get on that.
Yeah. There's a lot of things we got to do. I got 2 weeks left of school. 2 weeks. I finished my next to last class today, and I was doubled up, but they were a little bit off. So I have 2 more weeks of math, and then I have a college degree, 8 years behind my peers. But you know,
I mean the same way. I actually feel pretty good, Scott, because I went to my class today, which is I'm in a class that's voting and public opinion. So I get to take a public opinion poll. So I'd be really, really excited to see if I can put that on the podcast here. But I have to work that out. But in my class, I'm not the oldest, which is good. I've had some classes that are like that, where I'm the oldest person. This one, I have people that are like in their 60s, 70s, older people, and it's great. I feel, I'm not too far behind. I'm not that 60-year-old that's been working for 40 years on a degree. Let's see. Okay, so we talked about the
breaking news.
Okay.
Highly respected Mexican-American journalist Jorge Ramos asked some questions at a press conference with Donald Trump that Trump did not like, and according to the headline, Trump kicked him out because of these questions. Obviously, Trump's defense is that, quote, this guy stands up and starts screaming. He's obviously a very emotional person, end quote. And said that that it was security's decision to kick them out, not his, but he agreed with it. That would be a preview of the, was it the press room, the briefing room, whatever it is, at the White House in the next 4 years if we elected him. I don't like your question. Security, out.
He's not even going to let his White House correspondent, the spokesperson, he's not going to let him do anything. He's just going to get up there.
The
Okay.
press secretary.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna field your questions. If I don't like them, I'm gonna chop your balls off.
Could you imagine being that guy's chief of staff?
Oh God. Well, here's the interesting thing. What a lot of people don't realize is you don't have to have a chief of staff.
You don't have to, but it makes your life a lot easier.
Well, because you have two modes of. I'm gonna lay some education on you, ladies and gentlemen. You have two types, or there's multiple ones, but the two major governing philosophies that presidents use. There's one's called the hierarchical system, or hierarchical. I'm not helping my case here. Hierarchical, which is where you have a chain of command, a structure. So you have a chief of staff. Sometimes that chief of staff has his own little assistant, and each person has to talk to the next level person before getting that information to the president. Then you have what's called a spokes of the wheel sort of governing style, where the president or a governor, it can be done at that level as well, but they appoint almost like czars or gurus on a particular subject, and they report directly to the president. What you typically see is a lot of Republican presidents are more hierarchical, and then you have more your Democratic type presidents are more spokes of the wheel. JFK was very spokes of the wheel, although he did have his brother, I think, Bobby Kennedy. Yeah, Bobby Kennedy is, I think, his kind of like chief of staff. So he's kind of like a hybrid system. With that being said, a lot of this information I'm getting is I kind of wanted to introduce one of the things I've been reading lately, and I had some information here to kind of lay on you. So this is one of my textbooks from one of my political science classes. Very exciting. I don't know if you saw the title there. Party, Politics, and Public Policy in America. So it talks a lot about the political system. It talks a lot about how we think demographically in reference to political parties and why we are a two-party type system. And one of the things that I found that was really interesting was there's a chart in here. It's basically the voting behavior of groups, that's ethnic groups and stuff and so forth, with the 2008 election. So the way this is split up is you have race, gender, age, religious denomination, church attendance, labor ties, and economic status. So what we find in here, okay, overall, and these are done. And the source of this material was developed by Mitofsky and Edison as an exit poll. After the election, exit polls come out after the election, so they can kind of determine who voted for who, and so they can get that data and use it for the next election and who to go for next election. Which is why they're pandering towards Hispanics this time around, because Hispanics were actually a large portion of this. But anyways, overall, 53% of the population voted Democratic in 2008, and 46% voted for Republican. Okay, that was, of course, the 2008 against McCain and Obama. Okay, now if we look at the demographic as far as race, we have white, black, Hispanic, and Asian as the main. Sorry, Pacific Islanders. Sorry, Native Americans. You're not included in this, apparently. But 43% of whites voted Democratic, and 55% of whites voted Republican in this. Okay, blacks, 95% voted Democratic, with 4% voting Republican. Now, coincidentally, a lot of the voter ID laws started popping up, manifesting around the country after the 2008 election. Who's that aimed towards? A lot of the Democrats think that voter ID laws are aimed at suppressing blacks, African Americans from voting, poor blacks. Okay, Hispanics, 67% of them voted Democratic. Just 31% of them voted Republican. Asian, 62% of them voted Democratic, and 35% of them voted Republican. So what we're seeing here is that an overwhelming majority of minorities or non-whites are voting Democratic. As you see the statistics and the demographics within our nation change to where whites are vastly becoming the minority because of the rise of Hispanics, the rise of other races and stuff.
I would be
That's
really curious what the statistics were for the 2014 elections, because you're
right.
listing a presidential year where there's a much larger turnout than normal. But if you look at 2014, I would, forgive me for sounding racist at this point, I would be willing to bet that the vast majority of those minorities did not show up. That it was those 53% Republican that was actually voting
Right.
that caused this huge swift switch in Congress to a Republican-controlled House and Senate.
Well, what you also find historically is that, and I'll get to the age demographic here in a minute because I think that's also really important. But what you find here is college age voting, that's about 30 years and under. Okay, what you find is college age voters typically turn out for presidential elections, but do not typically come out for state and local elections, midterm elections, that sort of thing. And so what you have is you have a, for instance, again, I will pull this out real quick. 66% of people under 30 voted Democratic, with only 32% of them voting Republican. With 45%, 60 and over, voting for Democrats, and 53 of them voting Republicans. Okay. So what you're seeing here is that, of course, 60 and over tends to be a lot more of the people that show up for midterm elections. So what you typically have is these younger demographics, these college-age demographics, showing out for presidential elections, voting in for that, and then you have the more conservative, older demographics showing out for midterm elections. What makes this 2008 table, this 2008 statistic or exit poll, interesting is because of the large turnout of people, you have a more complete picture of which demographic is voting for what. Obviously, you could argue that it's swayed based off of political campaigns. So it would
You
be
could
interesting.
also argue that it swayed on who the candidate was. Nobody,
Right.
we don't want to say it because it's not politically correct, but there is a good portion of the African American vote that voted for Obama not because of his policies, not because of the way
Right.
he used certain things, but simply because he was black. And
Well, yeah.
nobody wanted to admit it at the time, but there's been a lot of people coming out lately saying that, yeah, I voted for him because he's black, whatever.
Well, then on top of that, what a lot of people don't realize, and I don't have the statistical data here, but black voters typically vote Democratic. Historically, throughout election history, that is, they typically vote Democratic. Not to this number though, not to this level of numbers. What makes this statistic interesting, or this breakdown interesting, is that if you look at the political climate that we have currently right now, Scott, who do we see that are being pandered to? Right? We're seeing these minorities that are being affected the most. Pandering's not the word I should have used, but essentially they're in the limelight. I haven't even gotten to gender yet, but you have the white Republicans talking about take their country back. Take their country back from what? It's these people that are voting Democratic. These people that are voting against them in large numbers from 2008. With gender, you have 49% of men voting Democratic and 48% voting Republican. So that's kind of even. You do see a slightly different number with 56% of women voting Democratic and 43% of them voting Republican. So you see a difference there. So of course, where are they going for? They're going for the Hispanic vote. They're going for the women's vote. They're going for all these things. That's why Hillary is a candidate right now. They feel that they can bring in the women. Okay. Here's we talked about evangelicals. Now, the way that they describe evangelicals, or they call them born agains, white born agains. How do you think they voted, Scott?
85% Republican.
Ooh, you're very close. 24%, just 24% of them voted Democratic, and 74% of them voted Republican. Okay? So again, it goes into that white backlash, or what Larry Wilmer calls it, the unblackening that you're seeing currently. You also have, of course, everybody talks about unions right now. Unions. Republicans are trying to destroy unions, while you have people like Bernie Sanders trying to work with unions. A lot of his financial backing, his campaign backing, comes from unions. That's because in this particular instance, 60% of unions voted Democratic, with 37 voting Republican. Unions are typically more Democratic in their voting because they support them. Okay, so obviously what you see is this backlash from this. I won't even go into income, because it's the same story. Those with more money, more education, typically vote more Democratic. Or I guess with a middle income SES or socioeconomic status, they tend to vote more Democratic. Of course, you have those within higher echelons, 1%, typically vote more Republican, and then which is weird because then you have at the lower echelons of the socioeconomic spectrum, those that are impoverished with making $20,000 for a household of 4, whatever the poverty level is right now, they typically vote Republican as well. But what you're seeing here is this backlash. What's occurring is there's a push for immigration right now, a push to deport illegals, okay, which is directly targeting the Hispanic community. You have voter ID or voter suppression laws throughout the country, which some could argue are adversely affecting poor African American communities. You have this anti-union push. All these are from conservatives. And why that is, and if you look at these numbers, and it would be interesting to, I hope I want to pull some more charts. But what you're seeing here is these groups right here are the ones that voted democratically in the 2008 election, and I would wager, large part they voted democratically in the 2014 election as well. Of course, I don't have those numbers. So yeah, that's kind of, if you want to understand the political system, is why are we at this point we are right now. And why are these issues the issues that we have? It's because of exit polls like this. So when you hear, why are we talking about unions? Why are we talking about women's reproductive rights? That's why. So I thought I would share that. I thought it was pretty interesting.
It's very informative. I learned a lot. I really don't have anything to add to that. But
well, it was kind of, again, I'm gonna pull it up here. So you can kind of see the title. So if you are in the mood, you don't have to be in a political science class to learn these things. Oh, totally threw my screen off. My light
changed colors.
Camera. Yeah, it was weird. I had like jaundice for a minute. That was weird. You don't have to be in a political science class to pick up political science textbooks. Pick them up. They're fascinating. They will blow your mind. Obviously I kind of push for people reading stuff like Noam Chomsky, and we've talked a great deal about Lawrence Krauss and Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins type writing.
Right.
These books will give you a lot of statistics and information that a lot of people don't think of in the political system. So, thanks for letting me share.
You're welcome. You're echoing really bad right now.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know.
Hello, microphone. Hello, microphone.
Alrighty. Well, that brings us right up out of time.
Am I still echoing?
It stopped.
Okay, cool. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, yes, we're at the time, which means I got to do a little bit of plug for the website, www. or World Wide Web for you 30 and older people. www.polypompous.com. We got lots of interesting stuff on there. I kind of delved into my own personal interest. I opened my heart out in this last post that I did that I am open to the scrutiny of. It was why I'm not embarrassed to like Gilmore Girls and why you should like Gilmore Girls too. So Yeah, so I'm open to taking a little bit of shit for that, but it may be a fascinating read for you. Check it out. That's up on the website currently. I'm still working on a post in regards to we didn't talk about Ashley Madison, where we should have talked about that. But in regards to the Ashley Madison leak, there's a lot of information, especially with that Josh Duggar guy.
Oh, we could do a whole episode on that piece of shit.
Tune in next week as we talk about Josh Duggar, piece of shit. um, we also have the Twitter account, ladies and gentlemen, the @polypompous handle, where you can communicate with either myself or Scott about the various issues that you want us to talk about, or also that you just want to just give some feedback. All right, I like feedback. I like to be tweeted, and I like feedback. It's good stuff. With that being said, we get to Facebook. Yeah, Facebook. Was the brainchild of that Mark Zuckerberg guy so that we can sit here today and tell you to click on our motherfucking Facebook. We got all sorts of cool shit on there. All right. I kind of was on a roll and then you threw me off. But anyway, so yeah, check out the Facebook. Give us a like. We need those likes. It gives us that, what is that self-validation, Scott, that you feel when somebody likes you. You're like, ooh, I've got that boost of self-confidence. So whenever you click that like button, whenever you tell your family and friends to hit that like button, Scott and I, we celebrate a little bit inside every single time. We're like, look, Mom, I'm not a failure. Woohoo! That's what we tell ourselves.
It takes a lot more than that, but...
For you, maybe. For me, I'm... I look at it and I see that we haven't gotten a like in a while, and I'm like, why doesn't the world like me? And I start crying and I get all emotional and stuff. So if you don't want to see me cry, well, that's a difficult road to go down. If you don't like seeing me cry, then like us on Facebook. Yeah. You got anything to add?
Like, you summed it up about 4 times, so I'm good.
Woo, man. I'm a talker, man. Sorry.
It's all good. Well, with that being said,
you guys have yourself a lovely, lovely week. And if you're starting school this week, come on, get that studying going.
Sucks to be you.
Yeah.
Take care. Keep thinking.